Hello and welcome to the Road Monkey podcast and episode 53. The podcast is here to share stories from those that think differently, have unusual career paths and had faced adversity along the way. Our aim is to share their insights and hopefully help you on whatever path you're on. This week we share some wisdom from one of the most experienced and knowledgeable coaches in the world of sport. Dave Champion has been a club coach across 3 decades and is a 4-time Olympic coach, his most famous charger being Karen Pickering MBE. Dave really opens up to us about his journey, his failures, his successes, and shares some great insights and equally amusing stories along the way. Just before we dive into this episode, please make sure if you're not already click subscribe to the podcast, please do so, and follow us on whatever social medias you use. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn. Right, let's get straight into it and episode 53 of the Road Monkey podcast. Dave Champion, it's okay to have fun, a conversation about coaching and life. Hello Dave, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Really pleased to be here. I look forward to it, read about it all the time, and honoured is the expression I'm thinking of.
Well, certainly the honour is mine, having had many conversations with you over the years. And obviously you've got a swimming background. That's how our paths first crossed. So if you can just give our listeners and our viewers just a bit of an introduction as to who you are and I guess your headline journey.
Right, so I'm Dave Champion, and I'm currently and seem to have forever been the head coach of Team Ipswich Swimming. I've been here for must be like 32 years now, so quite a long time. So I've been lucky enough to be part of Swim England programs, and there's no coach currently going through any journey that I haven't gone through or making any mistakes that I haven't made. So that would be my journey, which is just sort of like stumbling from one thing to the other, trying to pick up as much stuff as I can, really.
So I'm curious, obviously we were chatting a little bit before we started recording, why swimming? How did it all start? Because, most people who end up swimming or becoming swimming coaches, or most coaches, kind of it ends up a little bit by accident. So kind of let's go back all the way to the start. Where did this involvement in the swimming world come from?
Well, it wasn't by accident. So what it was I was not, and if you've ever met me, you would know that I am not a scholarly kind of person. It's not my thing. And I can't think of anything worse than spending time I struggled to stay at school, really, So when I left school, I got a job, and it was a hard job, and it had nothing to do with sport, but it was a hard job. And luckily, what with the way I was brought up and this hard job, developed what I thought, or what I think now is a really good work ethic. I think I work really hard if it's something that inspires me or something that I want. So anyway, what I did is I just splash around a bit when I was a kid, used to swim a bit, but that's not where it came from. So what I basically did is every night when I was working to decompress, because it was a hard job to decompress, I'd go for a swim at Beckenham swimming pools. So I'd go for a swim straight from work for an hour, and then come home. And then what happened was obviously, so that's every night. So eventually, right, you get to know the people there when you're there every night, as you know, right? So eventually the guy who was coaching next door, because Beckenham back then had another pool through a door, and it was intriguing to me because the door was always shut. It was like that Frasier sketch, where there's a platinum door. And he goes, "What's through there?" So it's kind of like that. And they're like, "What's through that door? You can't go in there." And I'm like, "Oh, just look through the window." So anyway, and through that door was the age group squad of Beckenham Swimming Club, and the guy who was taking them was a guy called Conrad Cooley, and anyway, so I used to watch, and eventually he said, "You can come in and watch if you like," So I come in, and eventually he said, "If you get qualified, you could come and help me." And I was like, "Well, okay, how'd you do that?" And then that fateful year, 1985, right, was I said I can do that, and what I did really is I got qualified, and then I helped him out, and then one thing led to another. And it was that journey, and I just thought it was really cool. And I thought it was really cool being around people who were so focused, and they were quite exciting. I really like that. And Beckenham Swimming Club back then was overflowing with personalities. You know, like they were just like they were naughty. They were like they were lively. They were exciting. It was a good place to be, and it was like I quite enjoyed it. And this guy ran his age group program like I think I run my club. You know, like it was self-contained, and you know they did stuff. They did hard things, and they enjoyed it. So like that was how I got involved in it. And I wouldn't say it was by accident, but it was really just by me looking through getting to the bronze door, then the silver door, then the gold door. So, and then just thinking to myself, like, you know what, this looks all right. And then after a while, it just seemed like, I think Conrad said to me, he goes, you know, you seem quite good at this. So it's like, well, you know, I think I was quite good at it because I was interested in it. Maybe that's the key, right? So you're always better at the things you're interested in. So that's how that worked, really. I'm sure he would say something different, but like, I quite enjoyed it. So.
Can you remember, I guess, like looking back on that period of time, was there a moment where you kind of went in your own mind, like, I actually think I want to do this, you know, long term? Because I'm sure if I'd have said to you, go back to 1984, for example, that in 2021, you'd have done everything that you ended up doing, you'd have probably gone, nah. So at what point did you actually kind of decide that was going to be a route you were going to go down long term?
Not even now, right? So like, it's like, so I'm ready for a job change right now. No, but back then it was like, so back then it was really one thing at a time. So like, I dealt with I did Beckenham. I wasn't paid by Beckenham. I just helped this guy. And then what happened is right back then, if I remember rightly, I might be messing my timelines up a little bit, but what happened is he got offered the job at Orpington. Or he wanted the job at Beckenham because that was when Bill Penny was at Beckenham, and he retired anyway. So they advertised for a new head coach, and that new head coach was Doug Campbell, come from Houston. And so Doug got the job, and this guy Conrad said, he goes, right, I'm leaving. I'm going to Orpington, and he said, I'll get you. You can come and be my assistant. And that's what I did. I went and was Conrad's assistant at Orpington. I was still paid I was paid £1,500 a year, and it cost me £3,000 in petrol to get there. But like, I mean, it didn't matter because it was the same thing. And for me, what was exciting was I had my own group. And so what I did is I did that. I went to Orpington, and like, you know, you'd be like, oh, you know, a bit chancy. But and while I was there, I got a job in a sports shop at Crystal Palace to try and make ends meet, because to make this work, I had to give up everything. So I gave all the things up, and I earned nothing. I mean, living at home, it didn't really matter, but like, well, it did to my dad, but like, you know, but not to me. But like, and then, so I got a job in the sports shop at Crystal Palace, which was my first introduction to Great Britain swimming. Because when I was there, someone said to me, Great Britain are training upstairs. And we're talking in the realms of Gaynor Stanley, June Croft, like big swimmers, you know, like the real deal guys back then. And then I think I said to you before, and I went, oh, I'm going upstairs to have a look. So I shut the shop, went upstairs, and I came across 4 coaches asleep on the wall and kids just swimming up and down. And I was like, oh, this can't be how it works. But apparently it was how it worked back then. But like, so, and it was in that fateful moment, right? One of the things that Orpington did is once a week they trained at Crystal Palace long course. I don't know what it's like there now, but back then what happened is on a Tuesday night, different clubs had different lanes. So I think Beckenham trained from like something like for a couple of hours, and after they got out, the lanes were given to clubs anyway. So Orpington had a lane, and one of the things that happened is I met Karen Pickering. She swam for Orpington on this Tuesday night. She just come up and trained. Anyway, so things being things, and she had a bit of a disagreement with her coach down in Shiverance. Anyway, and that's where I met her. And that's where she said to me after whatever many months, she goes like, you know, you can coach me if you like. You know, it's like, and that's how that all started back then. So I think that started in about, again, right, my timeline might be off, but like maybe 1987. So maybe 1986, maybe it's tricky for me. It's a long time ago. But so anyway, so one of the things I wrote down when you said the first questions, you wrote, so what's it about? And it's like, it's about being lucky. That's what I think. And I know there's a great story about during the war, and the guy said, the American Pacific Fleet guy in charge of that said, I don't believe in luck, but I'm not going to employ any unlucky submarine skippers. And it's the same thing. I think it's like, I know you make your own luck, and I know all those stories, but sometimes I think if you look on the bright side, or if you're looking for it, sometimes you can stumble across something that's gonna change. And anyway, she did. That meeting with her changed everything for me, and went from being a coach at a tiny club to going to Christ knows how many Olympics and what knows what. So
do you look back and I mean, obviously that was, I'd imagine, retrospectively quite a surprising moment, but were there any moments earlier on as that journey started to unravel that you kind of almost pinched yourself to go, is this really happening? You know, surprising moments, if you like, kind of early on in your coaching career?
Kind of. I mean, one of the things that was, well, one of the things about that was, one of the things that like coaching Karen back then made me do, you see, was upskill very, very quickly. So I spent a lot of time reading, and it was, and back then as well, I'm trying to think who was in charge. So back then as well, you had some like infamous names like Paul Hickson, and they were in charge of what's going on. And it's not like it is now, or maybe it is, but it's not meant to be. But back then, what happened is if your face didn't fit, you were done. You know, you didn't get anything. You know, you didn't go anywhere. So, but I did meet some really cool people. But obviously, I also found that was quite a hard. It wasn't necessarily, one of the things I found is it wasn't necessarily as fair as I thought it was going to be. I thought if you did X, then you moved on to that, but that wasn't the way. Back then, the teams were picked on politics. So they'd be like, so the reason I say that is like, so at the 1988 Olympic trials, which I think were in Leeds, Karen didn't make the team, although she finished fourth, and for a relay. That was for Seoul, I believe. And but she didn't make the team because they wanted to take someone who was Scottish. And it's like, right, hold on. And so some things happened there. So what we did is both me and Karen decided that we weren't going to let that happen again. So like, she needed to win stuff now. And also I think in hindsight, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to her, because then all we did is go away, and it got stuck in, and really got stuck in, and just did what we thought was gonna, you know, like enable us to not rely on goodwill to get us where we wanted to go, if that makes sense.
I find that curious because, I mean, zoning in specifically on some swimming examples and then perhaps some other ones. 2004, both Kerry-Anne Payne and Rebecca Adlington were this close to making the team and didn't. And were young, obviously very young at that point, but actually it was, you retrospectively look back at how they then applied themselves, if you like, for 4 years. And actually 2008, they both came away with medals. So I think it's curious. And then if you look at other sports, you know, you got someone like Tom Brady, who was, you know, last, or what was it, 199th pick in the draft because he wasn't any good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So I think it's curious, I guess, as a thread coming through sport, that actually sometimes people think that those roadblocks are actually complete end of the journey moments, but actually they're just kind of a complete change of direction, and one that long term might get you somewhere further than you'd ever imagined.
I think, you know, I mean, because nowadays with social media and that, you see so many sort of like motivational quotes and stuff like that, but some of them are very true, you know, like, and it's just an opportunity to change direction. I mean, like, I was just looking at the Europeans, we were talking about it earlier, but like Laszlo Shea is in the semi-finals. I mean, like, holy moly, that guy, I was just reading, this is his 10th long course European Championships. And it's like, what? You know, like, and he's won 48 medals. And it's like, you know, it isn't necessarily, it's quite interesting as well, actually, because when Karen went to the European Juniors, Karen was on the European Juniors with Mark Foster and a distance swimmer called Ian Wilson. So a lot of the older ones, a lot of the ones who had December birthdays. She's Karen and Mark have both got birthdays in December, I think. A lot of guys, and she had the worst, the very worst. I mean, they didn't win a medal. I mean, like, so European juniors, and it's like, and I just think it's too easy to write people off. And I think it's too easy to write yourself off. And I think one of the best quotes ever is about that door. If it doesn't open, it's not your door. And it's like, and that wasn't her door. And she went on to like amazing things, so that's my take on that, without a doubt.
So I guess, like, yeah, especially young coaches, wide-eyed, everything's going to be amazing. I'm going to go to the Olympics, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to coach the next Michael Phelps, whatever it is. Everyone thinks that, I guess, the journey is quite linear and it just constantly, you just get better and, it will happen to you. So, obviously you've alluded that it doesn't quite work like that. So what are some of the bigger challenges, not just on your journey with Karen, but across your career, that have actually stuck out for you, that retrospectively you were like, well, actually, I'm probably only sitting here because of those moments?
Actually, I wrote a few down, actually. The challenges for me were, I mean, it's different now, right? Because this is a challenge that who would have envisaged this? Do you know what I mean? Like what's happened here. But for me, so I was lucky enough, right? So I coached Karen and we got her to the Olympics. And we were a club. And you're not allowed to do that anymore, I don't think. I think you can, but you have to have a swimmer that has a very high degree of, I don't know, loyalty or personal motivation to be part of what you do, whatever. It's complicated now, I think. It's much more complicated. But like, I think if you can get a swimmer who buys into what you do, and I think if you can get one that's like going to be loyal to you, then that's different. But I think on the whole, most swimmers now are cajoled, encouraged, bribed. I don't know what the word would be, right? But to leave and go to a national centre. And I think for some, that's an amazing thing to do. But I think for others, they don't need that. I don't think so. I mean, but it depends on the swimmer. It depends on the relationship you have with them. But certainly for me, one of the things I wrote down for a coach is you get judged by things that are outside your control. Like when the kids don't swim well, and everyone's done it, they go like, "Oh, poor swim, poor coach," and I'm like, no, not necessarily, but when you know the background story of the swimmer, they might only go training twice a week, you know what I mean? Or they might have a parent that's round the twist or something like that, right? But like, so I think that's quite hard though. It's learning to take a breath. That's one of the most important skills I've had. And I think the other thing for me is it's hard when swimmers move on. Even now, that's hard for me. And I know people go used to it, right? And it's like, no, I don't like that. I don't like it when people move on, because inevitably, for most swimmers, you move on. That you're talking about the end of them then. So they move on. That means they've gone to university. All of a sudden, their work is going to take over their life, and it's kind of like not the end of the journey, but it's the end of the story with you, sort of thing. I find that hard. But and another one is a really good quote, which I'm not. Every time I read this quote, it comes from someone else. I think originally it was like General Patton, but I've read the one about Mike Tyson where it says everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, and it's true, and I think the original one is everyone has a plan until you make first contact, and it's true. I think that's why I'm a big believer in it is what it is, right? So like, can you hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and then just roll with it? And I think they've served me quite well. That is, it's because otherwise you'll go insane. And I do know lots of great coaches who have not gone insane, but the stress has like eaten them alive. And I find it quite depressing sometimes when you hear of young coaches who have stopped and given up because they don't like that sort of stuff, or because it's got the better of them. And it's if there's one thing about this COVID situation, is I think it's made people a little bit more aware, maybe, that people struggle. Everyone struggles. You can talk to people, So, and that's one of the things that's been good for me is over the years is I've known so many people, and it's like so many people, and all of those people have experienced what I've experienced, So there's nothing new. You haven't got anything new that anyone hasn't done. And it's true now, like no one has got a problem that I haven't encountered ever. It could be anything you want. And you could go like, what do you mean? And I'm like, done it. Maybe I don't want to talk about it here, but like, yeah, done that. No, that's happened. Yeah. So it's, challenges keep coming, and challenges are always coming, I think.
I think something that's quite curious for me, because it's been one of the, although every coach has similar challenges, the last year and a half, everyone, when we've had like the group catch ups, you're on your WhatsApp chats, Facebook groups, whatever it is, everyone's experiencing the same headaches, if that makes sense. Because let's say all pools are closed, for example. Suddenly every coach is like, me too, me too. And then, especially as we kind of, get past the initial shock, maybe April, May last year, where actually everyone was like, okay, we've accepted, pools are shut and there's nothing we can do about it. You'd suddenly see coaches coming together talking about other stuff, all the other stuff that that's been going on for years in their programs, in their lives. And actually, I think there was this kind of sense of community, if you like, that actually we're not just in it together through the COVID, we're actually all in it together as coaches on a journey. And I think, we catch up, every couple of weeks. And I think you look across the coaching landscape, if you like, in all sports, and I think coaches don't realize they probably have a lot more in common with the rival down the road or around the corner or the other side of the world than actually perhaps they realize. And it's only when you speak to coaches like yourself that have been there and done it, and actually can look back and go, this normal, it happens, these ups and downs are complete, they're part of the journey. I was reading a book recently called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and that was just outstanding at articulating how actually people that go on and have long sustained and usually pretty successful careers in whatever industry, sport, doesn't matter, that they go through struggle. And I don't mean they have to go through struggle, but struggle is a relatively normal experience for them. So I think it's not downplaying it from it's not a tragedy, what's happened in sport in the last 18 months, but actually it's okay. You're gonna make it through it. Your program, your swimmers, you will make it through it. And that's something I think when we have conversations, you always come at it with a Mr. Cool hat on, the level-headedness of going, take a breath, calm down.
Yeah, do you know what? I think one of the important things you learn as you get a little bit older, and you'll learn, Kev, as you get a bit older, right, is the things that you need to get excited about and the things you don't need to get excited about. And I think like when I first started coaching, I can remember like absolutely ranting at swimmers for things, different things. And don't get me wrong, we've got quite a strong vein of discipline run through our club. Not as in they can't do anything wrong or they're not allowed to do this, but just what we expect from them. But like as I've got older, I'm like, I can't be doing with that. It just uses up so much energy and so much, and it just produces so many bad vibrations, and it's like, it's just not worth it, and it's like, so we kind of fight the battles we can win, and then the ones we can't win, we just like step back and like, right, you know what, let's just watch this happen, or let's just see what this does, or so it's like, I think you just learn to almost like you ration your energy, and it's like, I've got so much to give, right, and before you know it, what you're doing is just spending your whole time, and it's quite true, people said this before, you spend your whole time in the face of the kid who doesn't do anything right, but the kid who's doing everything right over there you never speak to, like, so you're like, oh right, yeah, so like, so you're, like, so if we say, for instance, we're doing a set and we want them to do like, I don't know, 4 fly kicks off the wall. In the past, right, I'd be running around the poolside years ago, counting everybody, and then you spend your whole time giving a hard time to this kid who's not doing it, and you actually forget the guy in lane whatever who's actually doing 6, like, and who's doing a better job. So now I'm like, actually, I was talking about this yesterday with Zoe. We actually find actually get so much more back. You get so much more by saying, hey, you did a good job there, like, and you can see that they're like, just the look on their faces is better. So I'm a big fan of that. I mean, I know there's I know where there's need to be discipline, don't get me wrong about that, but like but I think sometimes, you can be a bit sticky about the wrong things. I think sometimes, or things that are not that important, maybe, I think. And to be honest with you as well, after the year these kids have had, I must admit, I'm inclined to give them a break right now, so.
You talk about discipline, though, and I think there's some massively negative connotations because of, I guess, the more traditional authoritarian approach that, perhaps coaches of previous generations have had. But actually, what we're talking about, and, having been around both your program and your kids for many years, is standards. It's not a tightly run ship in a negative way. There's a high standard of performance, and the kids are part of that culture. And actually, by praising the positive elements, I guess, of what people are doing, it almost is going, if you uphold these standards, that's what we recognize. And actually, we expect you to raise your game, if you like, to those kind of standards, whether it's at an event where they're turning up on time, but they're actually there early and actually going, yeah, we expect that. Have you got your drinks bottle? We expect that. No, we shouldn't be, on the nitty gritty stuff. And I remember listening to Clive Woodward talking about the tiny little things in the run up to 2003. He would never holler at people for doing things wrong. He'd just say, "Oh, you just lost us the World Cup." Like the tiniest.
That's enough, right?
Exactly. And he said the team would just be all over it. They would make sure that standard they expected to get to whatever their goal, their ambition was achieved. And I think the word discipline, obviously, you say, has a very traditional root of being quite negative. But actually, we're just talking about upholding a certain set of standards that, if you're in a performance program, we have a set of standards we expect. And it doesn't matter whether that's a performance swim program or a business or a school or whatever it is. This is what we expect if you want to be part of this group. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, we talk to our kids about, I get kids and they go like, "Oh, I'm not feeling very motivated." And I'm like, "Me neither." But what's that got to do with it? It's like, it's self-discipline. That's going to get you what you want. Not being who's motivated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? You're telling me Adam Peaty is motivated every single day? Of course he's not. But the thing is athletes of that standard have incredible self-discipline, right? And he or whoever they are will know, wouldn't they? If they don't do this, then that won't happen, and then they won't get that. It's not complicated. So when people say to me like, "Oh, I'm not motivated," I'm like, "I hear you." It's like, do you think what?
What time do you get up in the mornings?
I get up at 4:10 every morning, and I'm like, and when we had that lockdown, I got up at 7, and it was the best thing that ever happened. But so, and I don't mind getting up early. I don't mind getting up early for people who are putting in the work, and we have great turnouts in the mornings. We have a lot of people training, and I like to think we have a lot of energy, and I've got caffeine chewing gum that makes sure that happens, right? So it's like, so we have a lot of energy, and like I say, when people go, "I'm not motivated," I'm like, well, you're going to have to be. If it's nothing to do with swimming, it's to do with your job. It's to do with what you do when you leave school. You're going to have a bit of self-discipline for you to achieve anything you want. You're not going to be motivated every day. Welcome to the real world.
And I think that all comes down to the fact that, you use an example like Adam, but any Olympic champion, high performance professional athlete, it's what they do on the days that they don't want to do it that defines their best. And
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I want to say season 5, I think we had Jazz on, who's one of the nutritionists who does some stuff with Adam. And she said, it's what you do on average that counts. And I was like, that's a really good way of looking at it, to saying like across the week, you might have a day out of every 10 where actually you're not on your A game, and that's okay. But if you have 9 days out of 10 where you're not on your A game, your average comes down. And I was like, that's a really basic way of looking at it. But it's the same as school. You can imagine kids coming out of school and getting 10 Bs and being like, "Oh, that's okay. That's pretty good." Or 1 A and 9 Fs. And actually they'd be like, "Oh," and that's for me how swimming training, your approach to swimming, can transfer so well into life, because actually a lot of those lessons around choosing to be good on as many days as possible is something that will benefit you in your careers, education, sport, whatever it is you want to do.
I think Michael Jordan said it's how you train in the dark. It's what you do in the dark that's what shows up in the light. And it's like in that Michael Jordan way, and you think yourself like, oh yeah, and it's very true. It's like, it's what you do when no one's watching. I tell you what, how we judge our groups, right, and how we judge our kids is if I leave the pool deck, not that I do, but if I left the pool deck, what would they keep doing? Would they keep going? Would they stop? Would they leave on the right time? And I know they would do, right? But there are lots of clubs and there are lots of swimmers I know that don't. that would stop, and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I don't, I think it's what you do when no one's watching. Everyone does the right thing when someone's watching, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Everybody does that. But when you're left to your own devices, similar to like if you go to the gym, or when you go to the gym, you've got no one making you do it, have you? I don't know about you, but like I can't think of anything worse than like even if you've put too much weight on the bar, right? You're thinking I'm not stopping now because people are watching. So it's like it's what you do when you're sort of like under your own steam. I think that makes such a big telling difference later on, I think.
No, it's very true. Well, I want to move on to, I guess, some of the more cheerful aspects, because there's been some, you've obviously had, a very extensively successful career, but obviously at a range of things, from working with, you successful Diddy kids locally all the way through to obviously Olympic level. So what are the bits that, you actually look back on now, and you're sitting there, during COVID, where maybe you've had a bit more time to reflect, that you look back and think that was all right? Because I know you underplay everything.
I'll tell you what I've enjoyed most about I've been to a few meets, it has to be said, right? And I've been to a few international meets and whatnot. But one of the best things about all those meets is not actually being at the meet. I mean, it's good and it's cool and all that, but like the journey into it, the preparation, I like that. And it's the sense of something coming. I like that. It's like when you can see, like, so you talk about our little kids, and that would be one of the best meets we ever had with our little guys was a couple of years ago at the Regions, right? And but like 2 weeks out from that, they were buzzing, and you can see it, and it's exciting, and it's stuff like that keeps me excited. I mean, people always say to me like, "Oh, aren't you bored at being at the same club?" And I'm like, "Nope, it's just as exciting." And it wouldn't occur to me not to go to an age group meet, because I just think it's so exciting. I love the fact that these kids, and we spoke about this before, I love the fact that kid can like brush their hair a different way and they go 10 seconds quicker. How does that work? And then you've got a kid who's 16, 17, and they're like, oh, and it's, and then they try twice as hard and go a tenth slower. And it's like, but these little age groupers, like, with no baggage, not a care in the world, they don't care. They don't care. They have the worst start in the world and a crap turn, and they still do a best time by 10 seconds. And it's like, what happened there? I don't understand. That feeling going into a meet that anything is possible. I mean, I've got a good story about that. When we were coming towards the Manchester Commonwealth Games, and so we were sort of like maybe like 3 or 4 weeks out from the games, and there was nationals at Coventry. And Karen and Bill Sweetenham was the boss then, and he said, "You got to work really hard." So we're working really hard, and we went to Coventry, the 200 freestyle, and Karen went like 2.9, right? And she didn't make the final, and she looked awful, like she was. And over the because packed nationals, right? Over the tannoy goes, Dave Tempion, please report to Bill Sweetenham. And then I walked. It all went quiet. And I walked from one side of the pool to the other. It was awful. But like I said to him, I thought you said we had to work hard. And he's like, and then coming up to the meet, of course, she was getting better. But like, I can remember I was sharing with Dave Calais, and I can remember saying to him, I think I might have made a mistake here, because she looked awful. And then like the day before she started racing, I said to Dave, I'm not sure I want to go to the meet, and then the next day, like, she absolutely flew, like, not just flew, like, won, and in her press interviews or something, she goes, "I knew I was going to win," and I was like, "When did you know that?" She goes, "Oh, a week ago." So could you not have helped me out? So like, I was like ready to like pull the pin, but stuff like that. So that kind of journey, looking back on it now, it's fun. Back then, it wasn't so much fun. It was like, but like that was good. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the meet coming up. I enjoy those young kids. I think they're fun. I love coaching those little guys, and quite stuff like that. Really, I mean, there's I've had so many good laughs away, and the good thing is you meet so many cool people and coaches, and I've never met a coach yet. That's why when you talk to young coaches and you say, just ask, and they never do, just ask anyone. but like when I first started coaching Karen, I was talking to Terry Dennison, AD Morehouse's coach, right? And he said, when you walk onto the poolside, he goes, you can either turn right. He goes, you go down that end of the pool, and all the people who do all the moaning and bitching and all that, they're down there. He said, or you can come out on the pool deck and you can turn left. And you can go up the other end. He goes, with all the people that are positive, who will help you out, who are interested and keen. And it goes, always make sure you take the right turn. And it's true. The next time we went to Nationals, I looked down that end and I was like, oh, I looked up that end and I'm like, that's the way. So I just spent all my time around people who can help me out and not moaning about it. It's hard enough as it is without listening to everyone else's problem. You know, I've got all those problems. I don't want theirs. So that's that. And all those people down that end, like Chris Nesbitt, Ian Turner, Keith Bewley back then, some amazing coaches, and all of them give you all the time they got. Amazing. And it's like, if you don't ask, then you're never going to get it. So.
Yeah, I've been, I guess, quite fortunate in that over the years, like with yourself and many other coaches, that actually I just want to have a chat. And sometimes there's not even an agenda to it. Can we just have 20 minutes, half an hour chat? And I think very often, if you're not willing to put yourself in those situations, and especially, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but the modern generation still expects the information to come to them. And I think you've got to put yourself, you know what, why won't you give me all the information? It's like, well, have you asked? No. And it's, yeah. Anyhow, one of the things, like, obviously you picked up a little bit there, was about, you know, the good times, the laughs. So whether it's international meets or just some of the other experience, can we pick out a couple of the funny belly laugh things that have stuck with you over the years that are just absolute gold and kind of keeping you engaged, and in probably the darker times you look back and think, oh, it is a laugh, really?
Well, I mean, there's some I can't tell you about, obviously, right? Because you did say that right there. But yeah. one of the best meets I ever went to was the Commonwealth Games in Victoria. I think that was 1998, but I wasn't on the team for that, right? So again, myself and Dave Kalea, we stayed in houses or whatever, but then what we did back then, it was a different story back then, right? So what by the pool was a golf course. So what we did is we biked to the pool. This is no lie, right? So right outside the door of the pool, we used to lock our bikes up right outside, so the building security would keep an eye on them, and then we'd watch the swimming, and then we'd go over to the golf course, right, and just have lunch, watch the sunrise or whatever, and then just come back here. We spent all day at the golf course. It was the best meet ever. And then what would happen is after the session, when the team were having a meeting and getting a good team rollicking, because that's used to get them all the time then, and we'd be like waving from the other side of the pool. It was just amazing. And they couldn't do anything to us, you know, like, so we were like, we're off, you know, like, so that was quite funny. Like I say, Manchester was quite good. But in Manchester, Bill again was the performance director. He didn't have anything to do with the team, but he was always there. Like Bill's always present, right? He's like he's omnipotent. You know what I mean? He's everywhere. And so we come up with this plan because he had this really bad habit of catching hold of the back of your elbow. You're pinching a nerve. It really hurt when he was talking to you. So what we did is what we played is Bill tag. And then what would happen is every time you saw him coming, right, you just walk around the pool. So like for most of the warm-up sessions, right, he spent his whole time walking around the pool trying to catch up with one of the coaches as they like that was very funny. But it was just like you know, it's just one of those things. And actually I have got another story about Bill Sweetnam. We were on where was that? We were on a meet. It's one of the meets we had. Bill always got us to wear different coloured t-shirts. I might have told you this before. And it's myself and Ben Titley were sharing. Anyway, like, and it'd been a long tour. I can't remember where it was. It was like one of the World Cups or something like that. And it was a massive tour. We'd been there weeks. It seemed like it anyway. And he said, so on the list of T-shirts, we were meant to be red in the morning. Anyway, and Bill's room was opposite mine and Ben Titley's. And like, so put a note under his door saying, change of plan. We're going white T-shirts in the morning, signed Craig Hunter, who was the team manager. Anyway, so, and then what we did is we contacted everyone else, right? So he come down in the morning right, had his white t-shirt on. Everyone had red on. So he went back up to change. And when he come back down in his red, everyone was in blue. It's like the funniest thing ever. He went insane. But it was just little things, you know, keep you going. And then one more thing, they all seem to be about Bill. I don't know why that is, but like, anyway, during my time of coaching, I was lucky enough to be the head coach of the European short course team for 5 years. And on one of those, it was in Dublin. And we took the biggest, I don't know if it's probably not now, but it was the biggest team at the time, took 90 swimmers away with us. And so like I was the head coach. Bill went as well, and then you had group coaches, etc. So mine wasn't really coaching; it was organising, you know. But anyway, so before the final session, Bill said, "I want a meeting with the team." So I was like, "Where do you want to do that?" He said, "I want to do it right there, right, so everyone can see us and we'll look great," because we were leading the medal table and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, what he'd done, so the Dublin short course, the other end of the pool was up, you know, like at Sheffield, and he'd chosen the other end for the meeting. So like, you got to remember, right? So you're talking about 90 swimmers and maybe 15 coaches, 20 support staff. So as he starts talking, right, you look down and your feet are getting wet because it's sinking. So it's like, it's just awesome. It's just a funny thing, you know, like just look back at it and just, it was just really funny at the time, you know, like it's like, and they were, you know, no disrespect to Bill, because he taught me almost everything I know about coaching. He taught me everything I know about being a coach, as in what I should expect of myself and what I should expect of others. And he was a hard taskmaster. Everyone will tell you that. But like, but we did have some fun, you know, like around his like character traits, if you like. We did have some fun as well. It was a good laugh, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But like, yeah, there was some long journeys, and but the thing with Bill is that there was so much learning going on as well. It hurt your head. There was so much. So
almost feels like the last 12 months, where within a week of lockdown we were spending 4 hours a day on Zoom doing these
exactly
calls,
right.
and it was like, I think we need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. You can overload, can't you? It's and to be honest with you saying that, I don't remember much of those Zoom meetings now. I'm like, what who did we talk to? So
they're all saved for a future date to look back on. I'm
excellent
sure.
For the next one.
Yeah, well, hopefully not.
No.
I just want to talk, I guess, now reflections on the whole thing. So if you could go back to, you know, you're peeking through the platinum door, looking through it into the Beckenham pool and trying to give some, if you could go back and give some advice to yourself, just starting your journey, what would be the 3 big things that you would say that you'd think, actually, I'd have probably benefited from hearing that, knowing what I know now?
Right. So I wrote down 4, right? Because I'm like, that's the kind of rebel in me, right? So the first one was is stay humble and take the compliment. And I know you might go like, what do you mean, take the compliment? But when I first started, you got to remember. So when I first started, and Karen was red hot. Karen was like a red hot property swimmer. She was like first world champion in 1993, I think it was, short course. She was on it. And when people used to say to me, well done, at first I wasn't dismissive as in rude, but I'd always come back with a, yeah, but, you know, yeah, but, and I've got swimmers like that now, or I had. And someone said to me once, right, so you've got to take the compliment, otherwise people stop giving them to you. And that's what I tell my kids. So everyone has that kid, you go like, great swim. And they go like, well, it wasn't really, was it? I was 3 seconds off my best. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, no, take the compliment, or people won't do it anymore, right? People will just not, what's the point? You know, like, so that would be my first one. You've got to stay humble and you've got to take the compliment, and because it's the right thing to do. It's polite, and it shows that you've got some integrity. I think when you're like, oh, just dismissive, it's like, you know, I don't think so. But I mean, I can remember training at Loughborough before all this nonsense started, and watching Adam Peaty do one of those sets, you know, the ones he does. And it was immense. And afterwards I said to him, like, mate, you did a great job there. And he was like, thanks very much. You know, and I'm like, this is the Olympic champion saying to me, thanks for saying that. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's really important. My second one is you've got to have some faith and don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, I think that's the title of a book, actually, one of those little self-help books. And it's quite true. I mean, I know people go like, oh, there is no big stuff. It's all small stuff. And I'm like, well, you can tie yourself in a knot with that. Like it's like you just need to like let it wash over you a little bit, I think. So what's the third one? Oh, yeah, this is really important, I think. You've got to enjoy the moments. You absolutely have to enjoy the moments, right? Because you don't know when they're going to stop. You don't know if they're going to come again. I mean, I can remember one of my best moments is at Manchester. We're at Manchester when Karen won. That was amazing. That's the coolest I have ever felt. I was like, I could not believe how immense that was. Like, in Australia were red hot then as well. Like, and it was like, what happened there? Like that. But that was good. And you just have to enjoy that moment. I remember being in, I think we were in China for the World Short Course, and the girls won the 4x200 freestyle relay. And it was one of the first times I'd seen a flag at the Union Jack go up and the national anthem play. That was like a bit of a moment. You think yourself like, whoa, how cool is that? So I think you have to enjoy them, because the trouble is with coaching as well. I know right? But like there's so many, it's like this all the time. So you're like really, really excited. It's really going well. Oh, no. Oh. And you actually spend a lot of time at extremes. So like 1 minute you're like really happy, and the next minute it's like the world's ending. And then really happy. So you can come home from those things really tired. And I think you just have to enjoy it, like not overthink it, and just think to yourself like, right then, next, So it's and then my fourth one is the one saying that's become important to me is that it is what it is. And it's like, and it's actually what I've got written here is it is what it is. Just breathe. And it's true, like, so, well, I can't remember what meet we were at. We were at one meet. I think it was in Mexico for the World Junior Championships, the first ones, and the roof leaked. So there's water everywhere. And it's like, everyone's panicking like mad. It's like, look, it's okay, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. Every team is the same. It's so I think it's just being able to stay calm. And I'm a big believer as well that calm is contagious. So if you want your swimmer to stay calm and not panic and only worry about the things they control, you have to be the same. So if we get to the pool and the plant room, I don't know, the plant's turned off and the water's like whatever, well, then it is. There's nothing I can do. Me throwing a wobbler isn't going to sort the plant out. So, and the kids, I think as well, now they need someone, and they need someone who's going to lead that, who's going to go like, hey, listen, it's all right. We got this. Like we've had some, as you may well know, right? So we've had some, our track record in the Arena League has been like, so we didn't turn up for one. We turned up late for one, and we ended up with one where the bus dropped them off a mile away. So they ran. And, but it's like, it all works out in the end sort of thing, So like, so that would be my other one. Just got to try and breathe. It is what it is, but like really enjoy the moments, because that can have so much fun. And if the one thing I think about this COVID thing is for me is that there were some funny moments in it, like there's been some laughs. It's like swimming is a hard sport. A sport is hard. And I'm like, if you don't make it fun, I mean, I know we say that about the kids, oh, you got to have fun, but like we have too. And I think if you make it too serious, or if you make it life and death for you, that's when it goes badly wrong. That's when bad things happen. And that's when, like some coaches who maybe drink too much or maybe smoke too much or whatever, things can affect them in a bad way. And I think you have to keep it light. One of the things about this is that people have been getting out more. People are going for walks and stuff like that, and that's important, I think. And just even like you said earlier, so you just have a catch up. It doesn't have to talk about swimming. You don't have to talk about swimming. You can try anything, but I think it's important to keep it light, have some fun, and just look back on the memories, because when the time comes, that's all you're going to have, right? Some memories. And it's important that they're good and that they're fun, rather than keep thinking about, oh, it's so hard. It's like, oh, please. So I've got a whole group of swimmers who are like that. It's so hard. I'm so hard done by. And it's like, no, you're not. So move on. So I think it's important to have some fun.
So there's, I've got a Billy bonus question, which you sort of alluded to a little bit there, but the periods, you've obviously had such a successful career, dovetailed with a very challenging 18 months like everybody else with COVID. So I wanted to just, if you are happy to share the story of one of the things your club did, because every club, every sports team, every family out there had to try and do things to engage each other. But one of the things you did, I think it was with one of your coaching team and their kid.
Yes.
But
Phil and Phoebe cook along. Yeah, that's it.
I just thought that was a really cool little story.
All right, so Phil, he's my one of my assistant coaches. He's got I'm not sure. I think she's like 4 or 5 now, and so what we did is we ran a Zoom cooking thing, and with her and him. So and Phil's Phil's partner is home ed teacher, so she's in charge, right? So, but Phil and Phoebe took the kids through cooking different things. I think we did like 4 or 5 of them, and they were like the best attended things we ever had. And like, and it always worked out well, but it was chaos, like there was stuff everywhere, and I think she's got a gluten allergy, but like she'd be eating bits of bread, and so I think things were completely out of control. But like it was just a lot of fun, and they gave prizes for the best things, and that the idea really was the same thing, right? It's like so much seriousness and so much like what we're doing, and it's like we can do this, like it's just going to have some fun and do it, and like we'd probably do some more of them, even though we're back, because she was just a lot of fun. She got a bit noisy, I must admit. She was better when she was 4. She got a little bit noisier as she got a little bit older. So hopefully she's quieting down a little bit now. But like, that was what we did with him. Phil and Phoebe cook along. Yeah. In fact, one of the most successful ones we did. We were trying to think what we could do for Mother's Day, just gone. And so what they did is they did afternoon tea. So we did it on a Saturday afternoon. And like, so they made sausage rolls, sandwiches, they baked some little cakes, cupcake things, and like a sponge. And people sent in pictures of it, and people had gone out and bought, the stands that afternoon tea goes on. Yeah. People had gone out and bought all those. It was really good. It was really excellent. It was just a good laugh. And it was like, so you could spend an hour watching it, and it was just funny the whole time. It was a laugh, because she was like uncontrollable. And then trying to watch Phil with her under her arm, like trying to do that. That was, childcare at its very best, I like to think. But that was good.
But I think that's just a nice story, I guess, to pull it all together, because one of the things, I've had over the years, in our relationship in terms of both coaching and obviously my previous job, is that I've lived those ups and downs like every other coach out there. And in the darkest of times, you always seem to find some way of having a good giggle. And I think having, like I said earlier, everyone being through what they've been through over the last 18 months, I think sharing those little stories of positivity and things that hopefully we'll all take forwards has been really interesting. So Dave, thank you so much for sharing some time with us today.
Maybe when we're in our own, I'll tell you a few of the stories I can't tell you on here, so that'll be better.
I look forward to that, and we'll make sure obviously we include all the social media links, because you're an avid social media user, as all the coaches know out there. But no, it's been really enjoyable, and thank you so much for your time.
No problem at all. Thanks very much for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, what a fun interview that was. Thank you again to Dave there for such a great and open conversation. It is what it is, just breathe. A nice way there to manage the highs and the lows of the journey, whether you work in sport or in any other career path. You can follow Dave across the various socials, the links to which we've included in the show notes. We've got a really exciting announcement coming in the next week via our community update and our social media, so please make sure you're following us on the different platforms, the links to which are in the show notes. Next week we are drawing on more wisdom, this time from a retired athlete turned mentor. Stay tuned for that. Have a great week, and thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Road Monkey Podcast.